So today I'm going to talk a bit about why my videos are so sort of like sporadic and just random a lot of the time, which is to do with my disability. So I'm actually going to sort of talk about what my disability is, how I deal with it, issues that come up from it, just whatever really. So for those who don't know, I have what's Elhers Danlos Syndrome type 3. I think it's now VEDS or something. I don't know. I was diagnosed with it a few years ago now. Basically, it's hyperflexibility. It's a connective tissue disorder. So my body doesn't produce collagen as it normally would. So what it means for me is basically that my joints are hyperflexible and unstable. So I can do things like that kind of stuff, like stuff bends more than it should, which is sometimes fine, but often it does it. No, it does it just like constantly. So for things like standing, my knees don't actually stay in the place they should. They kind of, like hyperextend just to try and hold my weight, because there's no real support for that joint, just through the joint itself, like for most people. It also comes with like a bunch of other random things. So there's stuff, just chronic pain, which is caused from the joints not really being in the right places. And then chronic fatigue, which is mostly caused by that pain. So that's fun. The fatigue's the main thing for me that stops me really doing things. Like pain, I'm kind of used to it. I can deal with it. I can just sort of be like, yeah, cool, ignore. But the fatigue often just sort of, runs me down a lot, makes me unable to really do much. Because fatigue's not like tiredness fatigue, it's just, I don't know, it's sort of hard to really explain what fatigue is. Tiredness, it's sort of, you want to go to sleep, you want to take a nap or something, whereas fatigue, it feels like just no energy. Like it's, for me, it affects my thoughts a lot as well. Like I just can't think properly, I can't remember things. I think last year actually I was really fatigued and I decided I was going to try and do stuff anyway, and so I took the rubbish out. I lived in an apartment at the time, and so I took the lift down to where the rubbish was, and then I came back up to my floor and almost had to call my housemate because I couldn't remember the unit. We'd lived there for about a year at that time. I got to the right floor, I just couldn't remember what unit was ours. Eventually I managed to figure it out because the unit next to us had this thing on the door, this little blue please take off your shoes sign at the door, and I recognized that and realized that I lived next to that. But yeah, I'd lived there for about a year and I couldn't figure out which was the unit because fatigue, it just, it's really debilitating and not nice. So that's the main reason my videos don't get done sort of when I want them done or something, because I'm just too fatigued. Sometimes I do end up unable to sort of leave the house for a few days because of it. So I always try to sort of have stuff to eat and survive on at home. Like I always try to have a week's worth of stuff. So worst case scenario, if I can't leave the house for a week, or if I can't walk around or whatever for a week, I'm still gonna survive. Earlier this month, actually, I forgot to have enough stuff at home and had to call a friend because my joints were playing up and I couldn't make it to the supermarket, which I'm just going to move you for a second here and show you the supermarket from my place. All right, so there's the supermarket. But I just couldn't get out of the house to go to the supermarket to get food and stuff. Whoops, sorry, bad lighting there. Yeah, I just couldn't get to the supermarket to get food and stuff to survive on. So I had to get a friend. Luckily, I've just got a friend who lives here now. I do have a housemate who's also a friend, but he wasn't around. I have a friend who's also a neighbor now, so they were able to go pick up some stuff for me, which was really good. Yeah, so with the hyperflexibility stuff, I've finally recently joined a group support group for it, like just an online thing, which has been really good. Yeah, it's been really quite helpful, and also sort of depressing as well though, because it's sort of, I deal with most things through many layers of denial. And so sort of facing it and talking to other people about it and hearing other people talk about it, it sort of diminishes a lot of those layers of denial and sort of makes it a little bit more real and a little bit more in your face, in my face. Yeah, so for me, I usually walk with a walking stick. I found a really weird thing though. So I walk with a walking stick if I have flat shoes, but once a week or so I can actually wear high heels as long as they're high enough and I don't need my walking stick. So basically that's because the high heels sort of sew my foot, and sort of like that, and my knees kind of bend all weird and stuff, and they sort of, my leg just sort of tries to, I don't know what it tries to do, it doesn't do it well. Anyway, but the high heels kind of hold my foot up at that sort of angle, which then keeps my knees sort of bent enough that, I don't know, they don't hyperextend so much, so I can actually walk without pain, except then my the balls of my feet get really painful, and then if I do it too much, then my ankles and hips get really painful, so it's sort of just an occasional reprieve. But it is really good. I really like being able to have a day every so often where I can sort of feel normal, I guess. Because I do feel too young to need a walking stick in that sense. Like, I get that it's not an age thing, it's a ability thing, but I mean, I used to not long ago be doing hikes with my dad constantly, and I'd have this big hiking bag, and I was like 10, and yeah, I was fine. And now, yeah, it's hard to sort of get used to that, I suppose, and not feel less capable, and I suppose have like a diminished value of your own life. Anyway, yeah, sometimes the pain gets really, really bad. So sometimes my joints won't be in the right spot, just sort of long term. Not like a full dislocation. So there's like two things. There's a dislocation and a subluxation or a subluxation. Not sure if the X is like said. Anyway, so a dislocation is where the joint goes like completely out of place. So whatever that joint is, it's completely out. Whereas a subluxation, it just sort of comes out partly, so it's still in, but it's not properly in. And I think that's probably what my joints do a fair bit, but it often doesn't show up in tests and stuff, and I've never really tested it anyway. Like, I've had scans to rule out arthritis, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, ADS, Elhers Danlos Syndrome, it's not very well known, so often doctors don't know about it. Actually, the first doctor I tried to talk to about it, so I had a bit of a weird diagnosis story. I didn't really have any issues at that point. Like, I'd always had some joint pain and stuff, but I just assumed that was normal, like everyone hurts when they stand, that kind of thing. And yeah, so I was hyperflexible though, but it wasn't an issue at that point, and my sister did a series of artworks about it. Which was sort of about mental illness and stuff, but she used my hyperflexibility to sort of show that, in a sense, to sort of show that uncomfortable looking at mental illness kind of experience that a lot of people have. Anyway, yeah, so she did a series of artworks, and then her friend looked at them and was like, oh, my husband has that condition. And so kind of relayed that to me. And then I spoke to a doctor who wasn't my regular GP. I didn't have a regular GP at that time. And he sort of looked at me and he was like, no, you're too tall. If you had that, you're too tall to have that. I knew, like, I'd looked into the symptoms a little bit at that point already. And I knew that if it affects your height, which it doesn't always, you'll be tall and lanky. So I don't know what that doctor thought Elhers Danlos Syndrome was, but I don't think he thought it was what it actually is. So yeah, doctors often don't know about it, and they certainly don't know like the best ways to treat it. There's a lot of symptoms that aren't known at this point. Like, so you're talking to people in the group. I've in this support group thing for Elhers Danlos Syndrome. I've found that a lot of people have the same breathing issue as what I have, where it's just sort of hard to breathe. Like, it's kind of difficult to explain. A lot of them call it, like, I think it's air thirsty, they say. Like, it's feels like you're just not breathing. Like, you're breathing, but it's not doing anything in a sense. Like, it's, yeah, like your breathing is fine. It's not hard to breathe, but it just doesn't feel like it's achieving anything anymore. And that's just the sort of EDS thing that I don't really know about. Like, sometimes it does get hard to breathe. Sometimes it just feels like such an effort to move my chest that much. Like, my ribs just don't want to do it, I guess. Yeah, so there's those sort of symptoms. People don't, like, it's not known. It's a thing, but it's not really understood at this point. So my type of EDS, they also don't know the genetic marker yet, so they can't even, like, 100% rule that it is that. It's just sort of ruling out everything else, and yep, you've got the symptoms of it. Yeah. Anyway, so I've also found that I've used this kinesiology tape, KT tape. Don't just go looking for KT tape, because not everyone knows KT tape. It's kinesiology tape. When I first heard about it, it sounded great, and I was trying to find it for ages, but no pharmacist or chemist knew of it as KT tape. And so they kept going, oh no, we don't have that in store. When I found out it was kinesiology tape, I found every chemist has it. Anyway, it's quite good. I usually use that for my hands and my knees when they get bad. But I don't use it too much because it also irritates my skin a bit. And last time I used it on my knee, it also peeled off a lot of skin, which is really not what it's supposed to do. Anyway, I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah. So I could probably talk a bit more about this stuff, and I might at different points make different videos about it. Like, I want to do a video about how I use the kinesiology tape. So one for hands, like how I actually apply it, and then one for knees as well, for people who also have hyperflexibility or other issues and they want to know how you can use it. Yeah, I've also started swimming once or twice a week, which is supposed to be really good. I hate the water though. It's I also hate the water for a more, like, I suppose, understandable reason, which is gender issue stuff. Like, I am gender fluid, so it's okay when I'm female, but when I'm male, it's super uncomfortable. Like, I've started getting used to just presenting as female when I go out, because I don't really feel comfortable presenting as male anymore. I can't bind, and yeah, I just don't really feel safe presenting as male in public anymore. So I typically just go with female because it's safer for me now, which is all right. And I often just sit at home alone when I'm male. Yay. Anyway, there's been a bit of a long rambly video. I'm like not super fatigued, like I'm not the worst I've been, but I am still quite fatigued at the moment, so that's partly why it's been rambly and not good. Anyway, so I'm gonna leave it there. I've probably forgotten a lot of things I wanted to say and said things I didn't want to say, but I have no idea. I'm tired. Alright, I'll make another video at some point.